All power to the human family. Once again, this has been a wonderful infotainment, edutainment edition of the Artivist Presents We All Be Radio. Please feel free, family, to participate. I'm your host, R2C2H2, the Artivist, also known as Brother Ron. As you all may know, this month is Women's History Month, and also the month before that was Black History Month. And it is truly an honor to have on this honorable guest for this show. We're talking about the Yssis papers revisited with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, really a phenomenal scholar, a brilliant scholar, humanitarian. Her magnum opus, the Yssis papers, which came out about 20 years ago, really is a landmark work that's up there with, you think about David Walker's Appeal, or you think about anything by Frantz Fanon, or by a lot of leading scholars from the diaspora. This is like up there with them, like in the top 5, top 10, I would say. And it really would change your mind because it will blow your mind. It will manifest you and take you to higher planes of thinking and actually being more self-sufficient in terms of your thoughts and your actions. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the one and only, a true hero to the people, a shero for all times, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. How you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing fine, and certainly thank you for having me.
Well, it's an honor to have you, ma'am. And you are like your Yssis paper is like a Rosetta Stone for us in terms of how to deal with this global phenomenon known as white supremacy. And also, I'd like to introduce my co-host, coming out of the mighty NOLA, a true extremist extraordinaire, a beautiful sister both within and outside. Sister Jazz, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome back to the family. You doing okay?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor. This is a very important topic. We got Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, one of our true pioneers in liberation thought. And I'd like to talk to you, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Like, what is racism exactly? How will you define it?
Well, let me state my definition of racism, because this is the most important thing that black people have to understand in the 21st century. All of the problems that we face, all of the issues that we confront are related to this very powerful dynamic that people do not want us to talk about, but it is the one thing that we all have to get a comprehensive understanding of. My definition of racism is, first of all, racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism. There's no such thing as black racism or yellow racism. Racism means power to determine what happens to other people. So my definition is racism, white supremacy is the local and global power system and dynamic, structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined, which consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thought, speech, action, and emotional response, as conducted simultaneously in all areas of people activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, for the ultimate purpose of white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth, a planet upon which the vast and overwhelming majority of people are classified as non-white, meaning black, brown, red, and yellow, by white-skinned people, and all of the non-white people are genetically dominant in terms of skin coloration compared to the genetic recessive white-skinned people. Now, that might seem a little bit complicated to some, but to break it down, everybody needs to think about President Barack Obama. His father was a black man. His mother is white. Because black is a genetically dominant trait and white is a genetic recessive trait, when those two individuals got together, the child that they produced is non-white or black or shade of black. And this will always happen. And because people who classify themselves as white, see, they don't fool around and call themselves Euro-Americans.
Mm-hmm.
They are absolutely clear. They call themselves white. They trick the non-white people into calling themselves such names as Asian American, African American, but they call themselves by a genetic term which keeps them oriented. And so just imagine if the overwhelming majority of people on planet Earth are black, brown, red, and yellow, meaning dominant in terms of skin coloration, if they were free to move around the planet and the men of color related to the minority number of white females, then white would disappear. People who classify themselves as white determined as far back as the 15th century when they began to come out of Europe and they realized that the majority people on the planet were colored people, black, brown, red, and yellow. If the men had sex with the women, they realized that all the children ended up looking like the mothers, not the fathers, meaning white would disappear. And from that point on, they knew that they had to dominate all of the people of color on the planet. That domination was called various things. It was called imperialism, colonialism, neocolonialism, but all of it meant people with white skins who classify themselves as white had to, by any means necessary, maintain control and domination of the colored world majority. Otherwise, they would genetically disappear. Now, we have not understood that. People have focused on, oh, the problem is economics, or the problem is religion. Currently, right now, we hear people talking about, and you have a person in Congress whose name is King, talking about the Muslims this, the Muslims this, the Muslims are terrorists. He is talking about a religion, but fundamentally he's talking about colored people. It's like during the Second World War, Adolf Hitler talked about the Jews are doing this, the Jews are doing this, we must kill the Jews, or we must destroy the Jews, or we must put them in concentration camps. If you read Hitler's work, he wrote a book that's entitled Mein Kampf. He says in that book that he was not really interested in their religion. He said they are not white people. And all you have to do is look at the map where people of the Jewish religion originated from in North Africa. So these were, the word Semite is the same as the word mulatto. When people from Europe began to invade the countries on the northern part of Africa, they produced a mulatto population. They called that population Semites, meaning half black and half white. And so that mixed race, when those people began to move up into Europe, and they began to realize because of the genetic dominance of people of color that white would disappear. And so Adolf Hitler came along and said, we are going to kill these people. And so he rounded up the people, put them in concentration camps, and eventually gassed them or otherwise destroyed them. Now, we may think, oh, nothing like that can ever happen again. As a matter of fact, the Semites of the Jewish religion have a slogan, never again, never forget and never again. They even have they have Holocaust memorial museums in different parts of the country. The major one is here in Washington, D.C. But in spite of that, I maintain it is happening again. How, in what form does it take? It takes the form of the unemployment, first of all, The unemployment of black males, forcing them into the selling of drugs and using guns. Then you make laws to put them in long-term incarceration when they use those drugs and use those guns. And so you are removing a huge segment of the black male population. The definition of genocide is when you interfere with the reproductivity of a given group of people. And just like everyone talks about now, 70% of black families are female-headed, single-parent, female-headed households. Now, you can't have the sustained development of a people when the men are being destroyed, and black men are being destroyed. That's why black male children are dropping out of school. They're more in prison than are in the colleges. And vast numbers of unemployed. They say that white unemployment is like 9%. In many of our communities, it's 40, 50%, if not more. Men who are unemployed. And another thing that we see happening is because there are no men in the homes, black male children are being effeminized. And we have movies that are coming out, the Tyler Perry movies, and there are a couple of other movies that are coming out where black men are wearing dresses. At Morehouse College in Atlanta, it used to be the capstone of black male education. The president had to come out last year and say, black male students are not going to be allowed to wear dresses or high-heel shoes. You see, so if you turn the male population into females, you are engaging in genocide, even though it is not on the surface recognized as such. But this is indeed what is happening. Now, black people are not talking about, we don't have a single spokesperson, like of our spokes, we got, smart black people. But every black spokesperson who gets to go to the White House or gets to teach in any of the colleges and universities is afraid to talk about racism, white supremacy. Because if you talk about racism, white supremacy, you will get in trouble. The President of the United States, Barack Obama, when he was getting ready to be elected, he said that this important topic of racism needed to be talked about. If you remember the Attorney General, black man Eric Holder, both of these are the first black men in these exalted positions. And Eric Holder came out with his very important statement, are we a nation of cowards because we are afraid to talk about racism? And I maintain until proven otherwise, these two black men were told, I don't care if you're Attorney General, I don't care if you're the President of the United States, you are not going to talk about this critical topic, racism, white supremacy. So the only thing that black people can talk about are the symptoms of the disease. Like, I'm a physician. I've been a physician since 1962. That a physician knows that if a patient comes to your office complaining of various symptoms, let's say coughing, headache, maybe fever, the bad physician will say, okay, you have a cough, let me give you some Robitussin. You have a headache, let me give you an analgesic, an aspirin or something. You have a fever, let me give you an analgesic for that. A good physician will look at the patient, examine the patient, and say, are these all symptoms related to a disease process. If they are symptoms related to a disease process, I need to understand what the disease is so I can treat the cause of the symptoms. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like police brutality, driving while black. Those are symptoms of the disease of racism, white supremacy, although I don't really call racism, white supremacy a disease. It is a political construct to achieve a specific end result. You see, but I can talk about police brutality for days. I can talk about black male children dropping out of school. I can talk about all children doing poorly on exams. I can talk about single-parent households. I can talk about all of those things as separate entities. But it's just like if a house is flooded, a dumb person just goes and gets a mop.
Mm-hmm.
A smart person is going to say, where is the water coming from? And let me cut off the water. Because I can mop for 1,000 years and the water will keep coming. That's just like a main, if a water main breaks. You see, the water is gushing down the street, people are drowning, and somebody says, well, let's get water, get some buckets and start throwing the water over here. The smart person says, where is the water coming from? Let's cut off the main pump to stop the flow of the water. Now, this is what we are prevented from talking about, and if a black person mentions racism on the television, then the white host of the television show or the radio show will start screaming, you're playing the race card.
Right.
See, the whole deck is racism, white supremacy. But we have to understand exactly what it is. Neely Fuller, who wrote the textbook for victims of racism, and who was the first person, a black man in the District of Columbia, the first person to say racism is a global system for maintaining the power equation of white power over a relative non-white powerlessness. And he says, if you do not understand white supremacy racism, what it is and exactly how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, this is where we are now. See, we don't even understand why we just passed through February, right? The Civil Rights Movement.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 60s, when black people had their dignity and their self-respect and their courage, and they were going to march and get the vote and get public accommodations, even while police on horses were trampling them down and beating them up with billy clubs, and some people died in that struggle. The people were attacked with water hoses. But their dignity and their pride and their self-respect kept them moving forward in spite of the counterattack on the part of people interested in maintaining white supremacy. I maintain that the system saw, wait a minute, if we let these people maintain their self-respect and their dignity, their respect for themselves and one another, then the system of white supremacy is going to be in trouble. So what we have to do is turn these people around. And so then what did we end up with? Because we didn't understand what the system was. We thought it's just like doing our formal period of enslavement, which was a phase of racism, white supremacy. During that period, black people who were enslaved, we felt if they just took the chains off, we would be okay. And so you had slave revolts, and then you had Lincoln emancipating the slaves in order to keep the white people together as a union, not because he loved black people.
Right.
And so the slaves were freed, and we thought, wonderful. And the black people started doing different things, and then the people who classify themselves as whites say, wait a minute, we cannot have black people running businesses, we can't have them holding political office. So what we have to do is have the Ku Klux Klan, establish the Klan, where people would be beaten up, the men would be lynched and castrated, people would be driven out of their homes and their property confiscated. So, in other words, the emancipation was turned on its head, and white supremacy was reconstructed. Like they call period of Reconstruction. Some people turn that around and say, well, that was when people went into black people went into political office. Mm-hmm. Reconstruction was, once the power was taken away from the slaveholders, the slaves were emancipated, but we had to give the power back to the slaveholders, and whether the slaveholders were in the South or whether they were in the North. In other words, white people had to maintain their power. And so after the Civil Rights Movement, where the laws were changed, and so then the system said, wait a minute, we cannot have these black people going forward talking about black is beautiful, black pride, black dignity, black self-respect, black power. So what happened was the system said, what we're going to do, we're going to tell them they can be movie stars. But what we're going to have them do in those movies, they're going to be drug sellers like Superfly. They're going to be selling drugs. The men are going to be cursing out the women and beating up the women, and the men are going to be shooting and killing each other. And so the black people started thinking, oh, they're paying us money. And we think it's not black power, it's green power. Mm-hmm. So people were being paid to engage in their self-destruction. But not understanding racism as a system, they went forward. Then you had young black people coming forward, creating what they called hip-hop. And one of the first major records was Fear of the Black Planet, that people had taken from Public Enemy, took that from the paper I wrote, the Cress theory of color confrontation and racism. But the system said, wait a minute, we can't have these black people listening to a political message. So what we have to do, they don't understand what we're doing. They're just focused on making money. So what we can do is tell them, no, we want dirty, trashy lyrics. And we will completely annihilate their self-respect. In a short period of time, we will have them calling themselves niggers and dogs and gangsters and thugs and bitches and hoes, and we will have annihilated completely their self-respect, and they won't have a clue as to what has happened to them. And just this past week in Washington, D.C., in Crystal City, in Virginia, a group of young people, young adult people that were supposed to be giving out hip-hop awards, what did they do? In a big hotel, all dressed up. They started fighting each other, kicking over tables, breaking glass, hitting each other over the head with chairs. It was a complete and absolute disgrace. Now, as a psychiatrist, I say, if you listen to the lyrics that for the most part have absolutely nothing to do with self-respect, then you will understand, well, this behavior is logical. this behavior is being listened to by all the people who are fighting each other and all the people who are killing each other in the street. The system of racism and white supremacy wants to see black people out of the picture. And so, yes, now the videos we want you to make, the movies we want you to look at, black people will be demeaning and degrading themselves, and we won't have to overtly do anything. We will set them up, and they will destroy themselves and one another. Now, this is where we are.
And Dr. Welsing, I want to ask you, Sister Jazz, you have anything to ask Dr. Welsing?
I'm sorry.
Well, I agree. I've agreed with everything. You know, I've been so quiet because I agree with everything that has been said thus far. But I just want to know how you really, like, something, a plan, because my thing is that I agree, right? I know that we come from kings and queens and scholars and inventors and explorers, and part of who we are now is the fact that we have been denied our history. You know, we get a month or whatever, you know, but it at the same time that we get a month, they separate our history from the world's history. So blacks and minority Americans, you know, we have a separate history, so we don't get to learn it all the time in school. And I don't know, I've been in school 20 years, essentially, like my whole life. And I'm just now finding out about our rich, wonderful history because it isn't something that is taught. But I just don't know. Well, what are your thoughts, really, on how that we can get our self-respect back, get our self-esteem back? Because it's one thing to have it stolen from us, but now we're kind of just giving it away. We call each other nigger, and we call each other bitches, and
well, let me not cut you off, but just as I was just saying, we are in the presence of a system structure that we do not understand. See, you ask, what do we do based on what do I understand the problem to be?
Right.
And that's why I went through that explanation. I said racism is the problem. Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois in 1903 said the problem of the 20th century is the question of the color line, by which he meant the system of racism, white supremacy. And Mr. Neely Fuller came along in the mid-20th century and said, this is a system. This is a total system for maintaining white power over non-white powerlessness. See, it's critically important that we understand what we are talking about. See, anytime a person says, well, what do we do? Do about what? What is the problem? See, it's just like a person has to understand fire before they know how to put a fire out. If a fire breaks out in the house, a person who doesn't understand fire will say, here's a can of grease. Let's throw the grease on the fire. And the fire will get bigger because grease will enhance the burning of the fire. The person who understands fire will say we need water, or maybe we need to get out of here as quickly as possible. So what we want to do is jump over, and this is why black people keep saying, we got to get an agenda. We got to get an agenda. We got to get an agenda. We got to have a conference and get an agenda. An agenda becomes elusive as long as the problem has not been defined. We can't do anything without understanding what it is exactly that we are dealing with. And we can talk about black people were the first people on this planet, the first human beings. We're the mothers and fathers of everybody on this planet. But nobody on the continent of Africa has discovered the answer to the system of racism, white supremacy. And this is our challenge today. This is our challenge for the 21st century. So we can't jump into what is to be done until we fully understand what is the problem. See, and racism, white supremacy necessitates an attack on black people in general and black male persons in particular. Why? Because it's only the men who can impose sexual intercourse, which is why, following slavery, black men were accused of looking at white women, wanted to think about looking at white women, and they were lynched and their testicles and penises were cut off. And they were hung in trees. The men had to be attacked. And there has been no cessation of the men being attacked, even though we have a black man sitting in the White House.
Right.
But he has no power to talk about racism, white supremacy, which is a specific problem of black people.
Dr. Wells, I want to add to that because I noticed when you talking about the symptoms, and I know that I talked to a friend of mine in the radio business down in Louisiana, and he had sent me a press release about, it's like, there's a lot of black males in Louisiana, for example, that are being tasered to death. And you look around the country with Oscar Grant, getting killed at the bar station. And you look at in New York City with Sean Bell. And even like with the ascent of a black president, there are more black males being tasered by the police throughout the whole country. There's not really being reported on the news. And would you agree that racism is also a mental illness and also a sexual dysfunction there? If we're talking about racism in these terms you've been talking about.
No. See, that's like, in other words, there's some people who prefer not to talk about Adolf Hitler had a plan of racism, white supremacy, and destroying anybody who could cause white genetic annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't want to talk about that. So some people say Hitler was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
No, Hitler had an idea and a plan, and the majority of the German people went along with Hitler. We are going to kill and destroy the people who we classify as non-white, whether they're Semites or whether they're Gypsies or whether they're the black people in Germany who were the remnants of the people left over from the black soldiers who were in World War I. So the problem is a problem about understanding white supremacy, and Hitler, I say he's not crazy anymore. It doesn't make sense to call the people who practice racism, white supremacy, crazy. No, the white minority realized in the 15th century that they were a minority on the planet and they could be genetically annihilated. And they decided, we don't want to be genetically annihilated. So we have to control the non-white people, especially according to the color code. If you are black, get back. If you are brown, stick around. If you are yellow, you're mellow. And if you're white, you're right. Because black people, people who have the most skin color, have the greatest genetic power to cause white genetic annihilation. It's just like in my office last night. I had a parent telling me about dark-skinned, beautiful black lady, telling me about how difficult a time she had growing up because people were calling her, you're real black. Her daughter now has the same problem. I had a parent come to me who told me, my daughter says she's going to commit suicide because the boys tell her she's too dark to date. It's just like Kanye West said, there wouldn't be hip-hop video if it wasn't for the light-skinned black girls. Because we don't want dark-skinned black girls to be in our productions. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, see, this is self-destruction that we do not even know we have. We just think it may be cute. I guess. But the people who classify themselves as white are a tiny minority on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to program a large percentage of the non-white people who will hate themselves and hold up white supremacy. So those are all the non-white people, whether they're in Africa, Asia, in this part of the world, who want to bleach their skin, meaning I hate my color just like the white people hate my color, and I want to be white and I want to have long blonde hair, and so I buy hair that's from the Asians. Like I predict they'll be taking the scalps of dead Asian people and transplanting that on the heads of people who don't want to have short hair.
Oh, wow.
See, just like plastic surgery, it'll graduate to that. You see, or people can go into a clinic and say, I hate my black self, so I want to have a sperm from blonde Scandinavian, and I'll pay $20,000 for that, and then I'll have a light baby because I hate my color. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. I also want to jump and conclude, like you said, something about the hip-hop, which is a great point. You know, today is like the 14th anniversary of the passing of Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. Notorious B.I.G., and my sister was talking about what they were talking about on Twitter today. They were saying, would Notorious B.I.G. be as successful as Jay-Z if he was still alive? And a lot of folks say, no, he wouldn't be successful because he was too black. He was too dark.
Is that right?
Yeah, he was too dark, and he wouldn't be accepted. He's too dark, meaning he was too ugly. And he was already, fat, of course, but they're talking about because he was darker than Jay-Z, and Jay-Z was lighter skinned, Jay-Z would have still been more successful than Notorious B.I.G.
See, so you can see all of this, I call this psychological brainwashing. You see, it's just like black men putting on dresses.
Right.
This is psychological castration. See, if a black man wants to give up being a male, and so he'll put on a dress, he has been subjected to psychological castration without even realizing and understanding what has happened. You see, or I'll be a part-time female and I'll be on the down low. All of these are behaviors that are related to the specific stress of racism, white supremacy. Do you see, which is like annihilating black color, annihilating black masculinity, because this is the threat that I perceive, which is why, police brutality and the so-called police officer, white police officer, will shoot a black male, and then he'll say, I thought he had a weapon. Well, the weapon he has is genetic, is his genitals.
Right.
Do you see? But he'll say, oh, I thought he had a gun. But he subconsciously is aware that the black male's testicles, genetic material are much more powerful than his, and can cause, it's causing white genetic annihilation. So these are things that we must understand. Black people, if I could wave a magic wand, black people would not be dancing anymore. Every black person already has a PhD in dance, PhD in singing, PhD in playing ball. Now it's time for us to start being quiet and serious and thinking. But see, this is why they want us listening to banging loud music that'll, give you sensory overload and cut your brain off from being able to do any sustained thinking, critical thinking. You'd just be acting like a robot who has been programmed to self-hate. Now, this is what we have to begin to understand, because if a system is structured for their genetic survival, it's illogical to think that the system is going to set up the conditions for the maximal development of the black genetic and constitutional potential, or the maximal development, in economics, education, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. See, and another way that we have been brainwashed is giving black people the image of God as a white man. See, if you are presented with the image of Jesus as white, the brain, that's supposed to be the Son of God. Well, the brain doesn't compute the Father has to be black. The brain computes the Father must be white. So black people are, thousands and thousands of black people are in churches every Sunday. White God, please love me. I love the white God more than I love anybody else. The God looks just like every other white man that they see on the street. But we don't, because we don't understand. People just say, "Oh no, that's religion. That doesn't mean anything." Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I mean, you said the cross was like it was a phallic symbol. It represents the black male's genitals. And
say that again, dear.
You said it represents the black male's genitals, and his penis. The cross did. The cross.
The cross. That's what I maintain. You see, because if you drew a picture of the testicles, well, it's in the Yssis papers.
Right.
You see where you have testicle, phallus, testicle, and you just make a line drawing through that, and you have a cross. And so if you hang a little white man on that, a dead white man, these are symbols that the brain crunches. And the brain gets a whole paragraph or a whole page of information just looking at a symbol. It's just like a computer compiles data on little tiny circuits. And the brain crunches data into symbolic material so that you don't even have to talk about what the symbol means. That the brain will also register it. Do you see? It's just like when people classify themselves as white, see a swastika, or they see the stars and bars in that cross, even though they're at an angle. They understand subconsciously what that is all about. Do you see? Now, I would prefer that instead of black people, like in the state of South Carolina, where the people who classify themselves as white insist upon showing the stars and the bars. I think that black people, see, if we acknowledge that we're in a system of racism, white supremacy, not a system of democracy. We are in a system of racism, white supremacy. And so the swastika or the stars and bars, that black people would say, well, we wish that we were not in a system of racism, white supremacy, but we recognize that we are. And so these symbols of white supremacy are appropriate for the system. It's just like the Star-Spangled Banner. That symbol is red, white, and blue. And the flag is just like looking at a lateral view of the phallus and the testicles, where the flag is red, white, and blue. That means white skin through which you can see blue veins and red arterioles.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I was like, there's so many people want to get in. They got so many questions they're raising. I got the phone lines jammed. I just want to get in some people to talk to you because, it's not every day. And we got a brother named Marcellus Lovelace, a brilliant artist from your hometown, Chicago. We want to wish you an early happy birthday, because y'all know your birthday is on March the 18th, correct?
Oh, thanks.
So he want to wish you, he's really said, I hope that, you inspire him with your words and with your actions. And I just want to hit up the Delta. There's so many people from around the country have called in, from the Virginia, from Cleveland, from A.L.L, from all around the world in the chat room. I appreciate all the love for Dr. Welsing. So I just want to return that to her. Sister Margaret Block, a Civil Rights Veteran Hall of Fame, recently inducted in Selma, Alabama. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So welcome to We All Be Always. Sister Margaret Block, a true freedom fighter and singer, veteran of the Mississippi Civil Rights Campaign. How you doing tonight, ma'am?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
All fine. I can't complain. You got anything to say to Dr. Welsing? I want to add?
Yeah, because yeah, I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Well, you know that I'm really into these schools and what they're doing to these kids, to these little black boys in particular. Got setting them up to go to prison. They just virtually telling them, if you don't read, you're going to jail. You're not going to finish school and you're going to jail. They don't say that to a little white boy that can't read if he's in the 4th grade. It's only directed at the black male They don't even consider. I mean, if that's the only group that's been designated to go to jail in case they can't read, and the teachers are falling for it. They going along with that nonsense, and I just don't know.
Again, yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, based on what I have been saying, that this is tragically true. But if the system is what I say it is, this is logical that there would be this kind of attack on black males, black people in general, black males in particular, beginning with little children. I talked to a 6-year-old in my office, smart as he could be, in the 1st grade. What does the teacher say? I want to hold him back. The smartest little person, I want to hold him back. I'm just looking at genius. Do you see? So this is the problem. But just complaining about it, I would prefer that black people be able to say, instead of not wanting to talk about racism, that black people say, we now understand the system of racism, white supremacy, and we understand this attack on black people in general and black male persons in particular. And we're going to talk about what this system is. In the meantime, we are going to stop playing with sex and breeding and studying as we were programmed to do in formal slavery, to produce more slaves. We are going to respect ourselves as black people. We are going to respect our genitals, and we are not going to play with sex and producing children that we cannot take care of, because we have to be the primary and fundamental teachers of our children. And I see so many black male children who are in a state of depression that turns into bad behavior because they're missing their fathers. I'm not saying the fathers are bad. The system says, as much as I can cause black male unemployment, I'm going to do it. Because if a black man is employed, he can take care of his family, and his family will be stabilized. I'd rather spend $45,000 or $50,000 keeping a black man in prison than giving him a WPA job, helping to build the infrastructure. No, that would strengthen black families. So I would rather spend that money putting him in prison, having him freak his sexual behavior, hopefully pick up HIV/AIDS, and when he comes out, he can spread it to the rest of the people, and they can just die off. Now, we have to understand that. And don't spend any time hating white people. Just understand what they do. Don't spend any time being discourteous and disrespectful. Take all of our energy and understand what we have to do ourselves for our maximal development. And genetically, we're not inferior to anybody. Everybody on the planet has come from us.
Right.
But we have been reduced to the lowest level by this system of racism, white supremacy, and we have to retrieve ourselves.
Okay, we're going to take a... Go ahead, Dr. Welsing, you finish?
No, I would say if I could wave a magic wand, and probably the listeners, everybody would be cursing me. But if I could wave a magic wand, black people would be saying, oh, wait a minute, we don't have sex until we are 30 and 35 and until we are married, and no more than 2 children no closer together than 3 years apart, because we are in a war. Mm-hmm. War is being waged against us, and we have to produce strong people. And strong people require that they have strong, mature parents when they're very young. I would be out of business as a psychiatrist if people were getting their emotional needs met when they were very young. Just before you call, talking to a patient. Mm-hmm. Smart, but feeling I can't achieve my dreams because I didn't get my emotional needs met when I was young. My mother was 17. She didn't know how to be a parent. See, these are not bad people. These are circumstances that are imposed upon us. But the correction is not going to come from the system that is imposing it. We have to begin to understand how we make the correction. Sex is fabulous, but so what? When you're in a war, you are not jumping out of a foxhole talking about I got to get some sex when bullets are flying around. You'll get some if you get home, and you go get some maybe if you know how to end the war. So we're going to have to radically transform what we were thinking about sex. It's like, again, for 300 years we were enslaved. Right. We were breeders and we were studs. The children were transformed or shipped to another plantation, just like we're sending children to foster care. Right. Going from one foster home to another foster home, being sexually abused in this one, not taken care of in the next one. So we have to understand, not hate ourselves, not demean ourselves, not call ourselves names. We have to say, this is fascinating. We didn't really understand this system. Now we're beginning to understand the system so we know what our individual personal agendas have to be, what our collective agenda has to be. We have to be responsible for the maximal development of the black genetic and constitutional potential.
All right, we'll take another call. So many people want to talk. The area code, you Maryland area code 301. You on the air?
Yes,
752.
Thank you.
All right, welcome, man. Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for waiting.
Yes,
you can talk.
Thank you. Yes, this is Black Achievement in your chat room.
Hey, brother, Black Achievement. It's nice to finally talk to you.
Yes, finally. Yeah, I was tired last time. Thank you, Dr. Welsing. I got to go back to the beginning of the show to get a better understanding. I got two very connected, related questions. The first is dealing with the recessive dominant gene. How far should we take this? Example would be Halle Berry. Halle Berry, black father, white mother. She says she's black. Okay. She has a baby with a man says he's white. Halle says the baby's black.
Well, do you see what I'm saying? In other words, the father is either playing dumb deliberately or he is dumb. In other words, see, it's not a question of a white person having sexual relations with a black person and producing an offspring that has color. I mean, everybody has probably seen in the People magazine the little baby. The little baby is just a light-skinned black child. You see, there's zillions of light-skinned black people who are a product of immediate miscegenation or historic miscegenation and the preservation of light color, like don't marry anybody darker than yourself. So the fact is, if when that little baby grows up and goes to school, white people are not going to be looking at that little baby and saying she's white.
Right.
They're going to say, oh, she's colored.
Right.
She walks in the bank to get a loan, she's colored. She walks in to get a job, she's colored. So it's not up for discussion, just like you have white women who are having babies by black men. And then she teaches the little baby, you're not black, which means she hates black. If she loved that black man and she knows what goes on in the society, she'll tell the child, we live in a system of racism, white supremacy. You might be a little lighter than your father, but you are still considered black. My people, your grandparents, consider you to be black. And so you're going to have to respect yourself as a black person. See, this playing games about mixed race and all of this nonsense is just to confuse black people, confuse people like Tiger Woods, So he can't play golf anymore because he didn't understand racism, white supremacy that says, why should a black man be the highest paid sports person? Let's trip him up. Let's have a whole lot of white women have sex with him, and then let's call him on it. And he won't know what hit him. And he hasn't been able to win golf since. So we have to understand racism, white supremacy. Be glad that we finally understand that it's about white genetic survival. And it's not going to change just because somebody says, I'm not black. See, you can walk in a bank and see whether you get a good loan and a good interest rate and determine whether you're black or not. Right. And so if a black person, see, it's like any tragically Halle Berry's father, maybe he wasn't around to give her knowledge and understanding about racism, white supremacy. You see, he might have been like many people, well, I want to escape being black, and so I'm going to marry white. Like Neely Fuller says, when a black man, this is a black man talking, when a black man is poor, he wants a job. This is under the system of racism. When he gets a job, he wants luxuries. When he gets luxuries, he wants a white woman. Now, black men can attest whether this is true or not. And they need not be ashamed any more than it's the same thing as if I invented 3 pills. One pill you take on Monday and you can wake up and your skin is white. The second pill you take on Tuesday and it'll cause your hair to be long and straight. The third pill you take on Wednesday and it'll have you, it will give you so-called white features. Now, if I went on eBay selling those 3 pills, I'd have more money than Oprah on the weekend. You see, I can sell them on Wednesday. I'll have more money than Oprah on the weekend because all the non-white people in the world would be buying those pills because they have been brainwashed by the system of racism, white supremacy. To wish that they were white and to look in the mirror when they see themselves and say, I'm ugly, I hate myself. I mean, many people saw the CNN program with Anderson Cooper where he had 3-year-old white children looking at different colored faces and saying a 3-year-old white child in the strip of faces, so you had a little white face, the same face, but given different colors. From white to black, and different shades in the middle. And the questioner said, which child is ugly? A 3-year-old white child immediately points to the black child. Which one is dumb? Immediately at age 3 points to black. Which one is bad? Immediately points to black. Then testing little black children. Which one is ugly? Black. Which one is dumb and stupid? Black. Which one is bad? Black. You see, so children at the age of 3, 5 years of age, have already been programmed by the system of racism, white supremacy. The white children are programmed to think they're smart and beautiful, and the black children are trained to think of themselves as ugly and dumb and stupid and bad. So anybody who denies the existence of racism, white supremacy, is either being a criminal trying to fool people of color, or they are indicating their stupidity.
Dr. Wilson, what do you think about Michael Jackson? I'm just curious to get your insight into him. I mean, he seems like he was conscious about, black history, about Africa and things like that, but you look at what he did to his body.
Well, wait a minute. What did Michael say? See, I look at Michael when he was a child, and he was a beautiful black child. But what did Michael say?
He had no childhood.
His father teased him about his appearance.
Yes.
Yeah.
His father told him he was ugly. See, and how many black children today are hearing somebody call them, you little ugly nigger, you little black nigger, you this, you nappy-headed so-and-so and so, and yelled at and hit and slapped? You see? So this is the self-hate that the stresses and the pressures from the system of racism, white supremacy are teaching us and then training us to call ourselves niggers and call that a term of endearment or a bitch. See, we're the only people on this entire planet who have been taught to sing and praise our demeanment. See, I'm a bitch. I'm a hoe. I'm a gangster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a thug. I'm a dog. I'm a bow wow. See, at a certain level you can say, well, this is a crowning achievement of racism, white supremacy, because if you can train people to demean and degrade themselves, you can oppress them forever. You can even program them to kill themselves, and they won't even understand what happened.
Mm. Well, sister, we got another Sister Chandra out the Delta. You there, sister? Sister Chandra.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm sorry. Oh, good evening. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to the show. You're a part of the family. Dr. Welsing is on the line.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Welsing. I was just so engrossed in what was being said.
Okay.
I was interested in the idea of brainwashing.
Of what now?
Of brainwashing.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And
well, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Go on.
See, well, brainwashing is, you can consider brainwashing if you turn on your television set. Let's say I'm a black person, you're a black person. You turn on the television set, and all you see is white, 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 white. Then you might see a commercial like NyQuil had a commercial with a grossly overweight black man laying in bed with the covers all rumpled up. He looked as big as an elephant. Do you see what I'm saying? So it was a grotesquely demeaning, showed a grotesque face, and he's laying in a rumpled up bed with his arm over the black female who's in bed. They would never show an image like that of a white person. Absolutely never under any circumstances. So imagine little children sitting in front of the TV. In a lot of situations, children are propped up in front of TVs when they're 1 year of age and younger. And so they start seeing white, 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 white. Even the cartoons are color-coded. White, 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 white. And Sesame Street used to have little dark creatures coming out of garbage cans in a ghetto situation. Go ahead, Go ahead, dear.
I'm just with you. I'm thinking of Calvin in the McDonald's commercials. When they start having these commercials, start off with the black people talking to each other in the street. Calvin got a job. Calvin got a job. What?
Okay.
Calvin got a job. Calvin from the street.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that commercial.
And then you see Calvin with his hat to the side, close up, and then they zoom out. He turns around his hat with McDonald's to the front. Welcome to Mickey D's. May I help you? Oh, Calvin got a job. Like McDonald's saved us.
Exactly.
No.
See, but in other words, just like now, what we have to do is like there's an African proverb that says, each one teach one. We have to help each other. See, if I told a dirty joke on this show, that dirty joke would be all across the country within a matter of 48 hours because people would call and pass it along. But something serious, we don't pass it along, but we have to learn how to pass knowledge and understanding along to each other and begin to help each other understand as quick as a wildfire what racism, white supremacy is all about, and not talk about this. Don't spend an urge of energy hating any white people or being discourteous and disrespectful. It's just like if you were playing chess. If you were on the black side of the board, opponent is on the white side, you wouldn't spend any energy hating your opponent. You would really say, play your best game, and I'll be time enough for you because I know how to play the game of chess. So we have to know how to counter racism, white supremacy. Neely Fuller, in his first book, Textbook for Victims of Racism, gave a list of 10 behaviors that are basic in beginning to counter racism, white supremacy, and I call them the exercises in black mental health and black self-respect. And those behaviors are: stop name-calling one another, stop cursing one another, stop squabbling with one another, stop gossiping about one another, stop snitching on one another for reasons of personal gain, stop being discourteous to one another, stop being disrespectful to one another, stop robbing one another, stop stealing from one another, stop fighting one another, and stop killing one another. Now imagine if black people immerse themselves in those behaviors. See, we're always talking about we need black businesses and entrepreneurs. But as long as we are willing to be discourteous, disrespectful to each other, that means if you come in my store, I don't care how I treat you or what kind of service I give you.
Right.
You see, or if we are robbing and stealing from one another, as opposed to, if anything, demanding that we want employment and not incarceration. See, there ought to be a 2 million man march to Washington, D.C. of black men with the same dignity and respect that they had when Farrakhan called them to Washington, D.C. at a 2 million man march, and people saying, we demand jobs. We don't want to go to jail.
Right.
That's not who we are. We want jobs. And if you have money to spend to fight other non-white people in the Middle East, we want to end that fighting. And we want that money to be used so that we have jobs. Men work. And if men don't work, they're not going to feel themselves to be men. And we are men, and we want to work. We want to support ourselves. We want to be able to support our families and support our children. You see, now I add to that list: stop using and selling drugs to one another. Stop making black children think that as children they can be adequate mothers and fathers. Stop pretending that racism does not exist. Stop throwing down trash where black people live, work, and play. Every black person needs to get a Ph.D. in broom. That means sweeping up the trash, no paper, no glass, no dirt on the street, in the gutter, around where black people live, work, and play, because we are not trash. And we do not live in a trashy environment. You see, and stop allowing racism, white supremacy to divide black, brown, red, and yellow people. It's called victory by dividing and conquering.
That's right. A lot of people know it as Willie Lynch, but you actually gave me a black oath, a pledge of allegiance for black people that I posted on We All Be and that I'll read at the end of this program. I just want to get another call in right quick. Area code 215 down the air. Welcome to We All Be. Got anything to say to Dr. Welsing?
Yeah, I'm calling from Philadelphia. My main question is, doesn't the current Black American culture doesn't it kind of parallel what the plantation culture was? And doesn't the notion of what is black and white defined in America by the one-drop rule, does that notion kind of really apply in different places around the world? But certainly in South America, that one-drop rule can't really apply because you have such a large mixed-race population. So, so actually what I'm saying is the notion of what is black and white here defined in America is not exactly what is defined as black and white in different places in the world. And won't this notion of black and white change as the 21st century moves along, because you will have more of these mixed-race populations around the world?
Okay, let me comment in this way.
Mm-hmm.
People who classify themselves as white are not confused about what white is. So that if you go to places like Brazil or Central America, you can have all kind of mixed colors. But at the top of those mixtures is what? White. And at the bottom, it's black. And you have all kinds of little shades of tan, which is just like black people in families rate themselves many times on who's the lightest and who has the straightest hair, and name calling and all of that stuff goes on to this day. Now that's what goes on in Central America. They just have much more of a mixture, but they are not confused as to who is at the top. Just like when you fill out the census, the first thing on there is not Euro-American, it's white. So like I said, this is what they would do on the plantation. The slave master would rape an African woman, raped all of them, and then you start making mixed race, and so then you pit the people against each other based on color, but they're all slaves. And so you bring the lightest ones into the big house, and you rape them in the big house. But they're all slaves, but you have divided them because in the big house, there are only 7 people.
Mm-hmm.
Out in the field, there are 150 slaves. If the 150 had not been divided and competed against each other, they could overtake the 6 in the big house. But as long as you programmed them to fight each other, which is what Willie Lynch was all about, how you train them to hate themselves, fight each other, and you overtake them. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, that's right. Definitely.
So we have to see, people want to be confused. Like I know people who are working with young children, and you have little young black children, and they're just the different shades of showing that the grandparents were raped. See, anybody who's not crystal black is just showing evidence that the great-grandparents were raped.
Mm.
And you have black people going around. I'm so glad that they're not saying this. They're saying, I'm better because I'm light-skinned. That's just saying, I'm glad that my great-great-grandmother was raped by the white man. I'm so glad that my grandmother was raped and demeaned. You see, and anybody who is walking around with colored skins who's saying, I hate myself, or I'm a little lighter than this person, and I don't want to be that. I'm mixed race. You know, poor little black children. I'm not black, I'm mixed race in the 2nd grade.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? I hate myself. I wish I was closer to white. I hate myself. And so all of the talk in Black History Month means nothing. See, we want to go through the ritual of a Black History Month and talking about blacks did this and black did that, black kings and black queens.
Right.
And the summation is, I hate myself. or I'm content with the black children in my environment, in my home, having internalized the self-hate that the system of racism, white supremacy is taught. But see, as long as we don't talk about there's a system of racism, white supremacy, and we just talk about a system of democracy and capitalism, well, we're just in a complete state of confusion.
Yeah, that's true. We got a caller, area code. I'm trying to get this caller. 443, you're on the air. Welcome to We All Be Radio. You want anything to say? Have anything to say to Dr. Welsing? 443.
Hi. Hello. Hi, my name is Isha. I'm in the chat room. It's an honor to say hello to you, Dr. Welsing.
You're breaking up. Okay. Yeah.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Say hello to you, Dr. Welsing. I have read your book. I can't hear
you. Hey, you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
It's still kind of, the quality is unclear. Do you have anything you want to see?
Hello?
Hello? We good. It's still breaking up. If you could, I'll tell you what, type it in the chat room and I'll ask her. Because it's not a good quality. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Sister Isha.
And if I could, if it's okay, if I interject for a moment.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So now we know, right? So now we're becoming more aware. We're realizing that we're really just the 2011 version of slaves. You know, we only have what we have been allowed, and now we want to, conquer the system. How do you think that we should go about it? Like, do you think we need to go about it by schools? Do you think that we need to just say, well, we're done with
the exercises? Did you hear me just go through the exercises in black health and black self-respect?
But if we, and I agree, stop calling me.
See, we can't do calculus. It's like, in other words, go ahead.
No. I just couldn't hear what you said.
See, in other words, we can't jump over the basics. That's like talking to children about spelling, but they don't know the ABCs. Or talking to them about doing calculus, and they don't know how to do addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and fractions. We have to be willing to get the basics straight, because you might say we have been miseducated. We don't even have the language to talk about racism, white supremacy. And this is what I'm trying to do in this discussion, to jump over and say, well, we understand this, but what do we do? I'm talking about what to do. Just like I've said, if people stop playing with sex and producing children they can't take care of, and turning those children over to foster care where they're going to be systematically abused in many cases. See, there are things that we don't want to hear. We don't want to hear, oh, you mean I can't play with sex? We don't want to hear that. And so we don't hear it. We don't want to hear being courteous and being disrespectful to one another. But this is, again, this is what I'm saying, that this is like completely transforming the way that we think about and understand what is happening to us. Because if we can begin to understand, it's like if a person understands fire. If they are on a sailboat and a fire breaks out, they know essentially what to do. If they are at the top of a building and a fire breaks out, if they're in the forest and a fire breaks out, they don't have to keep standing still. What do I do? What do I do? Because they have been helped to understand fire. So now we are trying to understand racism, white supremacy. The system is saying, if you think I'm going to help you, you are mentally disturbed. because I've given you all of the evidence in the world. Look at your schools. Look at how your children are coming out of school. Look at how they don't know how to behave in a classroom.
Right.
Look at how they're jumping up and down and yelling and screaming so much that they can't learn. Look at their behavior on the school bus. Look at their behavior when they're teenagers and they go to a club and they can't entertain themselves without fighting and killing each other. So if we don't understand, the system says, I designed this system for my genetic survival. You with your powerful genetic material are a threat to my survival. I really have you on a genocide march, but I've got you so busy dancing and singing, you don't even see what's happening. Or going to a Tyler Perry film where men are dressed as women and laughing and falling out of the seat. It's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
I've trained you to laugh at your own death.
Well, Sister, like she was typing her question in the chat room, Sister Isha, we had technical difficulties with. She wanted to know why is it okay to be a racist and not be penalized, but it isn't okay to be an anti-Semitic. You know, we know what happened last week with the designer over in France,
right.
Saying the things he said. Now he's facing jail time and possible ruining his career. So, like, what do you think about that, Dr. Welsing?
Well, see, in Nazi Germany, you couldn't talk about anti-Semitism. Now, the people who Hitler said were Semites and the Europeans said are Semites, they have now come to the United States and reclassified themselves as white. Mm-hmm. They say they're white because by comparison, we look like we're the black people. Or the Hispanics are the black people, but because they were in Europe and highly miscegenated, many of them, they come to the United States and say, well, now we're white. Do you see? But because of their experience in Europe, where they lost 1/3 of their total world population in the gas ovens, because Hitler said, you're not white, and I'm going to kill you. And they wanted to be accepted as white. So they're like us. We want to be accepted as white, and so we don't want to think about racism. That was the situation they were in. They want to know, I'm German. Hitler, no, you're a Semite. You're not white. I'm a German. I'm a German. They wouldn't do that. So they learned a very painful lesson. You see, but coming to this part of the world, they say, well, I'm white. I'm not a Semite. I'm white. And so, but they learn. And so they don't allow any negative talk about Jews. But guess what has happened to us?
Right.
We have been programmed. Oh, you don't need to talk about us because we'll call ourselves niggers. We will call ourselves bitches and hoes and gangsters and thugs and bow wows. So we don't mind demeaning and degrading ourselves because we don't understand what's happening, which is why we greet each other by saying, hey, what's happening? We say that 1,000,000 times a day because we don't understand what's going on. And we keep walking in a circle thinking somebody is going to save us other than our saving ourselves. My discussion tonight is about we got to start thinking. And we have to start being serious people. And we have to stop clowning and being buffoons and demeaning and degrading ourselves and demeaning and degrading one another. And we have to stop going to movies where black men are being psychologically castrated and put in dresses and sitting up and laughing at it.
Mm-hmm.
See, if a black man is hung up in a tree and his genitals are cut off, we say, oh, isn't that horrible? But what about a black man who is walking around with his pants down, getting lower and lower and lower, and the next step is he will step out of the masculine dress altogether and put on a dress. Now, he has been psychologically castrated, pants hanging down, cracking buttocks being exposed. That's saying I want a male to put his penis in my rectum.
Mm. Dr. Wilson, let me ask you this, because I think it's very important you brought up these things, because I was thinking about, like, I'm in Memphis, and we just recently voted to consolidate the city schools with the county schools, and it's like we had to have a little mini movement down here to get it done. But when I talk to kids, I work with kids, especially in high school, I ask them, do you think that's a great idea? Because a lot of times the grown-ups don't want to talk to the kids and ask their input about anything. And so I asked some of the kids at different schools, do you think it's a great idea of consolidating the city schools with the county schools? The city schools in Memphis are predominantly black. You know, it's basically a black school system. And the kids say, you know, why should the smart kids want to be with us? We're stupid. We're dumb. These are kids like in 12th grade talking like this.
Well, see, again,
we know good.
We have been programmed for the last, 10, 15 years to call ourselves niggers and dogs and bitches and gangsters and thugs, and to repeat, if you're trying to learn how to read, if you're trying to be serious in school, you are acting white.
Right.
So that means that to be black, you have to be stone dumb. Now, this is what the dynamics within the culture are saying to us. And so as long as we don't understand what the culture is saying to us, we're just being moved and programmed by the culture. And because we don't have a counterculture of black self-respect, we have completely lost respect for ourselves as black people. And so this is what we're talking about. Do you see, we're talking about, wait a minute, we got to change the way we have been programmed to think that black people are supposed to be dumb and stupid and white people are smart. Black drops out of school. White stays in school. You see, all of this is the programming of racism, white supremacy. And this is why Neely Fuller says, if you don't understand this system of white supremacy racism, what it is and exactly how it works, everything that you understand will only confuse you. So this discussion tonight is all about we've got to love ourselves, respect ourselves, and transform our behavior.
Dr. Wilson, let me ask you this, too, because I think it's very important that we, cause I know this is one thing that people talk about, the issue of homosexuality. I know you talk about it in your work, the Yssis papers and the feminization of the black male. And I also look at the fact that so many of our creative geniuses, quote unquote, you look at somebody like Langston Hughes or James Baldwin, or even some of our great civil rights activists like Bayard Rustin, who was a confidant of A.L.L. Randolph and Dr. King. So many of our people who contribute were homosexual or bisexual. Like Billy Strayhorn and Duke Ellington's confidant in writing music. Right. Yeah, do we discredit their work or do we discredit them?
No, no. See, it's like, in other words, black people have, when I was growing up in the Baptist church in Chicago, Olivet Baptist Church, my grandfather was a deacon and trustee board. There were men who were homosexual who were gay. There were people on the usher board, people in the choir, people who played the organ. And black people were accepting of those people. You see, black people were not name-calling and demeaning and degrading those people. They were accepted for who they are. Now, what I have done, because even in medicine, we don't know what really are all of the causes of this behavior. But we now, as a black group of people, are seeing an epidemic level of the effeminization of black males.
Mm-hmm.
So a scientist will say, I mean, I have patients who are homosexual. I have patients who want to understand why are my behaviors in this way. And I have to say we don't have all of the answers. But one of the things that we are beginning to understand is that when male children do not have male models in the home, they don't know what to do with their behavior. So teachers in the early grades will start seeing young black male children who don't know how to stand up and urinate as a man. Because the only people in the household are mother, grandmother, auntie, some other female who sit on the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
They begin to internalize female behavior, and to the extent that the females are there who are longing for a male, the male child begins to internalize that also at a subconscious level. Now, they have chemicals that they're now talking about. Bisphenol A.
Mm-hmm.
The chemical that they say is in plastics. And they are saying it's now in the water supply.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying that this chemical will transform fish and frogs, amphibians, change the male to a female.
Yeah, I heard about this. Mm-hmm.
So if you are in a system that is fearful of the genetic power of black males, would your warped mind or your mind be programmed, well, I'm going to put this in a hamburger?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
If the Tuskegee syphilis experiments would be conducted, or giving people in Guatemala syphilis, and I maintain that an intelligent black person has to say HIV/AIDS has to be considered as biological warfare until proven otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So I'm just saying it's not against being against a person who's homosexual. But if you are going to have a community of people that are going to exist for thousands of years, you cannot say that males having sex with each other or females having sex with each other is the equivalent of female and male having sex and reproducing themselves.
I want to add, too, because I know you did a wonderful debate with Dr. William Shockley on the Tony Brown Journal back in, I believe, 1974.
Right.
We were talking about eugenics. A lot of people don't understand that we talk about Nazi Germany, that they have their inspiration from America, in particular California, with a lot of institutions. I know Dr. William Shockley was a professor at Stanford. But he had institutions in California that were funded by the Rockefeller Foundation that led the way in eugenics, that actually helped Germany with their eugenics program, like Dr. Joseph Mengele and people like that. So a lot of this stuff has traces back home, because I think about Nazism or Nazi Germany, how we used Nazi scientists to build our space program and Nazi military intelligence to build our CIA. So really, I mean, we're a reflection of what went on in Germany back in the 40s, so to speak. But my question is...
See, let me just say
this.
Mm-hmm. Germany is a state that considers itself to be a white state.
Mm-hmm.
The Western countries say that they are white states.
Right.
You see, Patrick Buchanan writes about the death of the West.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see? So they just use the term West instead of saying white or white supremacy. So the mindset that I've been talking about all evening is the mindset of racism, white supremacy, which is the mindset of white genetic survival by any means necessary, whether we use chemical warfare, biological warfare, or psychological warfare. So without understanding, see, if you say system of racism, white supremacy, Shockley was just a spokesperson.
Right.
Some of the very wealthy people who classify themselves as white, who believed in white genetic survival, also supported institutions that did the same thing, like Shockley was a Nobel Prize laureate.
Yep.
He was one of the inventors of the transistor.
Right.
But he believed in racism, white supremacy, and so his answer was, since black people are genetically inferior in terms of intelligence, then they should be sterilized. You see, so all of these are thought patterns that come out of the racism, white supremacy mindset, which is a mindset for white genetic survival by any necessary means. Now, as long as we don't want to understand in depth what it is, do you see, and keep talking about the Illuminati or talking about this or talking about eugenics and not understanding all of this is about the system of racism, white supremacy. And chances are some of our refusal to talk about it is because we want to be white. Do you see what I'm saying? So we don't really want to label it
right. Well, you know
what it is.
Well, George Schuyler, he wrote about it. I mean, he wrote about it quite brilliantly in some of his novels. But, like, somebody, leading to what you're saying, somebody in the chat room had this question: how does the Stockholm Syndrome relate to blacks in America?
Well, that's just, it's just people who are under oppression who keep hoping and praying that the oppressor will one day like them. Because the product of the dynamic of oppression has, if you are in prison and the guard comes along and calls you a name every day and spits in your food, and you're locked up and you're caged and you can't do anything about it, and you have to eat the food that you're spitting, that spit.
Right.
Or you don't have a toilet that works and you have to defecate in, plumbing that doesn't work, and all of the humiliations and demeanment that can go with oppression. You'd have to have a very, very strong mind not to begin to identify with the oppressor. You see, some people say that the Semites of the Jewish religion who went through a horrific experience in their particular Holocaust, you see, have now been placed by the system of white supremacy in the state of Israel, and then they're behaving towards the Palestinians in the same way that the Nazis behaved towards them. So it's like, if power overwhelms you, then consciously, subconsciously, you can want to become a part. Like, I would dare say, if you did a survey amongst black people, and you simply ask, the 30 or 40 million black people, who do you prefer to be with? This is March the 9th, 2011. Do you prefer to be with white people, or do you prefer to be with black people? Or if they could take a secret poll and nobody would, the person wouldn't be ridiculed about their answer, would you rather be white or would you rather be black? I dare say the majority of black people would rather be white.
Well, I dare say you might be right on that. I gotta agree with that.
See, based on how black people behave in relationship to themselves, if you're willing to call yourself a nigger, a dog, a gangster, and a thug, you certainly don't respect that. So what do you want to be?
Well, Dick Gregory brought a great point up when he talked about Jamaica last week on the show. He talked about this is the home of Marcus Garvey or Bob Marley. But yet one of the things that's killing young people down there, young black people, is bleaching. They are bleaching their skin, and it's killing them.
You see, again, what did I say about the 3 pills and me becoming richer than Oprah by the end of the week?
That's right. You are definitely on point. We got.
So we don't, in other words, we have to, at the same time we're talking about this, we have to embrace ourselves and say this is tragic, but this is interesting what has happened to us. Now, because we understand the system of racism, white supremacy, and the power of that dynamic, we understand why. Now, are we going to respect the creative force that made us black? See, black people think that they're spiritual. And they, we go to church and we're so spiritual and this and this and this. I believe that the creator of the universe that made black people the first people on this planet and the mothers and fathers of everybody, that creative force is essentially saying to us, look, I made you black for a reason. This is a powerful pigment that you don't have any understanding what the power is that it has. But now you hate it. I made it and gave it to you. And now you hate it, meaning you hate me. And yet you're going to beg me for help? You must be crazy.
We got area code 901-319. You on the air? You want anything to ask Dr. Welsing? 901.
Hey, Brother Ron.
Hey, Brother Morris. This is Brother White. Hey, Brother Morris, you got your question. Hey, go ahead, ask him, man. This is great.
Well, I just want to say, really, Dr. Welsing, good evening to you. I really enjoyed listening to you, and I've watched about 20 of your videos on YouTube today, and you are quite a fascinating person. And what I wanted to ask you about, black images in art. And me and Ron had this conversation. We have it quite often because, I'm an artist and a visual one. And one of the questions that I always get asked is, can I paint white people? And why do I only paint black people? And I had a painting that was part of an exhibit, Civil Rights Museum here, that was in conjunction with Memphis College of Art. And it was during Black History Month last month, called Artist Eyes on the Prize. And it was several artists, some from the 60s and some currently. But the thing that really tripped me out, I was telling Ron about, is that I was standing back, not letting anybody know who I was. I was standing back, and they were looking at my painting.
Listen to the comments.
Well, I have a painting that is that people are. It was the 40th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King here in Memphis, and I painted a scene of coming forward, and there's probably maybe 100 or so black people coming forward, and I was watching white people trying to find white people in the painting and trying to count to see if they could find white people. And one man was actually angry because there were no white people in the painting, which there are few, but it's really more of a question. I just sometimes wonder, why does the black image bother people so much? And a positive.
Well, see, I would say that, if the person was someone who classifies him or herself as white, see, somebody might say, well, how many artists who classify themselves as white are including black people in their paintings? How many filmmakers are including black people in their films other than somebody you see on the periphery or maybe, kind of at a distance passing on the street? Do you see? Or why did Michelangelo only paint white? Do you see? I would say the answer to that is that I paint what I see as an artist. I paint what I see in my heart. I'm a black person. I respect black people, and that's the basis of my art to the extent that I want to make it that. Do you see what I'm saying? And say, well, I'm surprised that you don't understand. Well, I respect myself as a black person. This is what I was going to be inspired to paint many times.
Right, and that is what I do. And Dr. Welsing, just to be really brief, and like I said, me and Ron, we're friends. We discuss things, a lot of issues. And one of the issues that I was having is not so much with the white galleries. I understand what's going on there. My problem comes sometimes with our black galleries that want the black people to be in the painting either faceless or featureless or so small that they become insignificant in what's going on in the rest of the painting.
Well, see, in other words, we as black people have been programmed to think negatively about ourselves. So sometimes black people can have a difficult time accepting the black image. But I tell people, in other words, if you really want to help get your mind straight, you will have a picture of a crystal black person in the center of your house, a large picture, not a grotesque-looking person. You see a beautiful picture of a crystal black person. And what you're doing is you're training yourself. This is what we looked at, and this is what we have to respect before the grandparents, the great-grandparents were raped in the system of racism and white supremacy. And this is what we have been taught to hate and despise. But this is what we are going to respect at the very highest level, because this is the creative force that made us and made us the mothers and fathers of all of the people on the planet. And black and crystal black is the only color that can create all of the colors. White can only produce white. But black can produce a mutation to white, mix those two together, and we get all the colors in the middle.
Dr. Welsing, thank you so much. And Brother Morris, thank you for that question. Dr. Welsing, you've been so
thank you, Dr. Welsing.
Thank you, and keep on painting.
Yeah.
I sure will.
He was a phenomenal player.
And you look fabulous, by the way.
Well, thank you. I just hope that I've said something that we can use, because our mission is to replace racism and white supremacy with justice so there can be peace on this planet. That's our assignment as the planetary parents.
All right. Thank you, Brother Morris. He is a fantastic painter, brilliant artist, and a very wonderful human being altogether. And Dr. Welsing, I'd like to thank you once again for extending your time and sharing yourself, because you are a true treasure of the universe. And it was such an honor to be able to learn, basically at your feet online and beyond. And I know so many brothers and sisters have got so much out of what you had to say. Maybe I'll probably copy and paste what they were saying in the chat room and mail it to you, among other things. Okay. But I'd like to end this show with what you wrote, Black Oath, a pledge of allegiance for black people. Like, I posted it online on my website. So I have to read it on the air. If you want to read it with me. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. Okay.
Okay, it's a pledge of allegiance for black people. I pledge allegiance to my own black self-respect and to the respect of all other black and shades of black people on planet Earth, all of whom are victims of the system of racism, white supremacy. And I pledge to use all of my life, energy, intelligence, and creativity in all areas of people activity to eliminate the global system of racism, white supremacy on planet Earth, and to replace it with justice so that there can be peace. So help me God. And Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, in the words of your fellow great Washingtonian, Duke Ellington, we love you madly, and please know that you are always welcome in the We All Be family.
Well, thank you for having me, and I certainly have enjoyed talking with you. God bless.
God bless you, Dr. Welsing.
Okay.
And good night. Okay. And Sister Jazz, thank you so much as well for being on the air, for hanging out.
You. Right. Thank you to her.
Thank you.
And all people who tune in. And what'd you say, Sister Jazz?
I said thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. You're always welcome back. I like intelligent, beautiful black women and black people in general. But like I said, Black Don't Crack. And thank you once again. Y'all can listen to this in the archives, everybody. Thanks everybody for calling in, and also for the wonderful questions and dialogue in the chat room. And continue to always express yourself on We All Be and Beyond.